Joining us now on the phone is an actress who is currently starring in the series My Perfect Landing. It's airing now on Family Channel. Please welcome to the show, Helena Marie. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, first,
thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And, you know, we told the listeners earlier today that we had a last-minute policy change, and so we're asking all our guests to join us by phone, and so we really appreciate you making the switch for us.
No, it works for me. That way I can just be in my underwear, which is what you're supposed to do when you're on the radio, right?
Be free.
Yep.
That is what Rob and I also in our underwear.
Right.
So everybody is comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Now tell us about My Perfect Landing.
Yeah, so it's a family show. So it's actually airing on Family Channel in Canada and CBBC in the UK. And basically what it is it follows a family of gymnasts. We started off the show in Miami, and I'm a single mom. I'm a widower, and I have 2 kids, and I just can't catch a break down in Miami anymore. So we decided to move up to Toronto and start a gymnastics studio with my father, who is a former gymnast, and I'm a former gymnast, and my daughter is an up-and-coming gymnast. And so we open up this gymnastics studio and kind of take it from there.
And so my question is, are you a gymnast? And do you do some sweet gymnastics on this show?
I am not a gymnast, unfortunately. No, you know what? I grew up dancing. I grew up doing ballet and jazz, and I think it was one of those stereotypes where I've always been really tall, and I think, you know, mostly the gymnasts you see are very petite, and it was just something that we kind of never really thought about doing when I was younger. And even, in fact, to this day, it is one of my life goals to be able to do a cartwheel properly. It's something that I've yet
Me
to
too.
accomplish.
Yeah,
And let me tell you, being on set with all of these these kids are pro gymnasts. They're real gymnasts. Morgan, who plays my daughter on the show, she had never acted before. And when they did casting for this, they went for the gymnastics first, and then got them to, you know, learn how to be themselves in these characters and bring their natural talent as gymnasts and incorporate that with acting. And it's really amazing to watch them.
It's probably, yeah, I mean, that I hadn't thought about it, but that probably makes the most sense, right? Because it's much harder to get a great actor and then go, also, we're going to get you to do some standing backflips. And
Yeah, honestly, it was something I was a little nervous about because no one had actually ever mentioned whether or not I would be doing gymnastics. And part of the research for the role, once I got it, was that they sent me out to one of the big gyms where all the girls were working on practicing for the nationals. And I got to hang around with them and watch them do their thing. And I was hanging out with one of their coaches, and you know, after about half an hour or so, I felt comfortable enough that I could ask a question. And I kind of turned to the coach and I said, so, you know, she's probably somewhere around the same age as I was. And I said, do you still do this? And she said, oh, no, this is a child sport, at which point I felt very relieved that there was probably not a likely chance that I would be doing any backflips anytime soon.
yeah, I think, it is. It does seem to have a short shelf. I mean, most sports do, but gymnastics in particular seems to be one of those, like, you retire at 25.
Well, I think even before that, your body's just like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah. You want to take full adult body weight on your wrists?
Yeah.
I think most of them get into CrossFit now. They finish up with gymnastics, and then they end up becoming phenomenal CrossFit athletes.
I imagine. I mean, the dedication to the sport itself, you can't just drop that. Mm-hmm. Be like, all right, well, I'm just going to sit at a desk and crunch some numbers all day long. You know, there's got to be something else that you're going to incorporate in your life that's going to involve some kind of, you know, intense physicality, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is great, is you also currently can be seen in The thriller, His Fatal Fixation.
Isn't that a great title?
Yes. These movies.
It's a hockey movie, right?
No, it is not a hockey movie.
It's not a
but
hockey
yes, it could be. It's on the
I
Lifetime.
love these things.
A Lifetime movie, and yeah, they come up with the best titles, and pretty much, I think often they love the theme. Love could kill you.
Yes. And it's great because, I grew up, I feel like when I was growing up watching movies, my grandma and I used to go see my grandma in the summertime, and she would let me watch all the movies I wasn't allowed to watch, like Fatal Attraction and things like that. And I feel like nowadays, this is where the Fatal Attraction has moved into, is this MOW, Lifetime, His Fatal Fixation. It's all these great. I love the storylines. They're so much fun.
Yep.
They're dark. They're twisted. It's you never know who done it. You've got that mystery. You've got the sex appeal. You've got everything going on in it, and they're just so much fun to do. Like, you can't have a bad day on set when you're working on one of these.
So tell us a little bit about, obviously, this is we can tell from the title, a love scenario that could potentially end, I'm guessing, in murder. What happens in His Fatal Fixation?
Murder.
So basically the storyline of the movie follows this young girl who is attacked by someone who has a fatal fixation on her.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's happened to all of us.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up getting this, some major scarring on her face. She changes her name. She changes towns. She gets a plastic surgeon to fix the scarring on her face. And she falls for the plastic surgeon, who happens to be married to me. And now we're in the midst of this very unhappy love triangle. All the while, people around us are starting to drop off. And it's very unclear as to who's making that happen. And you'll have to watch the movie to find out
Oh, I like
who's
it.
doing it, of course.
I like it. Is this one of these where you can yell? You want to yell at the TV, right? And tell people what to do. Do that. Don't do that.
Don't go up the stairs.
Yeah.
Shut the door.
I love those.
I always encourage people yelling at the TV.
Well, I'm good then.
Yeah. Rob's a real yeller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what we always want to know from people is, what are you watching now?
Oh my goodness. Embarrassingly, I am not a reality TV person.
Mm-hmm.
But I did just watch all of Love is Blind.
No, you have to.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Allison's been on this all week.
And I'm the same, right? Like, I don't watch The Bachelor. I don't watch, like, if I'm watching reality TV, it's like design shows. But this, Love is Blind, yes, I will.
I couldn't stop. And I think they did it really smartly, too, the way that they would release, like, 4 episodes at a time, because you'd be able to, like, kind of take it all in and then have a little break and talk about it with your friends. But it was crazy to me to watch it, because it made me so angry at at this whole system that we have of marriage, and I'm married, and I was just mad at it. I was just so mad that people, were so feeling like they needed this so much in their lives that they would commit to it. It's just ridiculous. That's admittedly what I've been watching.
No, they did. Even their editing is very smart. But yeah, I remember being really surprised in the first episode, just the way they talked about marriage, and not so much of like, oh, this is what I want out of a partnership, but about like, yeah, they're like, you have to get married, and everybody wants to get married, and if they say they don't, they're a liar. And I was like, oh, I know a few of those people, but I don't know a lot of them. And I guess I didn't, until I watched that show, I was like, oh, so that's a really underlying, like, a lot of people, it seems like, really have that feeling of like, I have to do this.
Right. And I mean, admittedly, obviously, it was in the casting of it. They're going to take people who are
Sure.
obviously gung-ho. And it's crazy because there was a bunch of people on that show that we never even got to see, and maybe even some of them made it close to walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I didn't really know what the show was about, and my friend had, kind of mentioned it on their Instagram story. And so I started watching it. And when the first proposal happened, I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
This is insane.
5 days.
I didn't realize, and then they started dropping like flies. I'm getting married too. No, I'm getting married too. What is happening? What is happening here? So yeah, it was
Crazy?
Yelling at the TV a lot. That was definitely one of those yelling at the TV moments.
Absolutely. There was many yelling moments in that.
It sounds like my kind of show.
It's fascinating.
You do like yelling, so it definitely, I would say, go for it, and then hate yourself afterwards for doing it.
Now, Helena, are you finding there is, we've been talking obviously nonstop this week about what is happening with coronavirus and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been a lot of change for you this week in the acting world? Because we're finding that, here at the studio, every day it's like a new kind of change is coming to try and adapt. What has it been like for you?
Well, it's actually interesting timing. I just had surgery on my wrist about 5 weeks ago. And so I haven't been doing anything on camera because of that. I have this nice little, I was in a cast, now I'm in a splint. So for me, it hasn't really changed much. Most of what I've been doing is voice work, doing ADR for the show, and then I just in Montreal a couple weeks ago for a commercial. And so, no, on my end, personally, where I'm at, not much is changing. But I know for a lot of other people, it is. I have friends who are working on shows. We just heard, offhand that there's shows are being postponed here in Toronto. And, it's getting a show or a movie made is an absolutely amazing process. And there are so many moving parts that I'm constantly amazed when anything gets made. And so now to have this kind of like come in the middle of it, I really don't know what's going to happen if the movies or the television shows that are going on hiatus are going to be able to continue after that. Mm-hmm. It's definitely, scary for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and employment is one of those things, and when there's a chance that you can't work, that lots of people might be out of work, it's always a scary situation, an unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. And although, it's interesting, I wasn't thinking about voice work, and that is work where you're isolated doing that anyway. You're alone in your little booth, and the other people are in another booth.
Yeah, I mean, so most of the process for voice work happens, the auditioning process nowadays is mostly done from home. So we have a little studio here at home, and, I have a voice demo, so sometimes they'll just cast it straight off the demo. Sometimes it'll be an audition, but most of the time I'm not having to go into the room to do anything like that. And then generally when you are booked on something, you need studio quality sounding room, so you have to go in person. But it's definitely a smaller enterprise than something like a Netflix show or something, for example, where there's like 100 people on set. Whereas when you go and do voice work, there might be 3 people in the room.
I love voice
definitely
work.
A lower contamination. So yeah, I love it too. Like I said, I was just in Montreal doing a gig out there for Skip the Dishes, and it's so much fun. It's a totally different beast than acting.
Sure,
it's really about. I love it because I like being able to self-correct immediately.
Right.
When you're on set and you're in a character, there's so many emotions going through you and so many thoughts and processes and moving parts that you kind of just have to trust. You trust your director, you trust everybody around you to give you the thumbs up, like, yeah, you did good. But in the voice booth, I can hear everything that's happening. I can ask them to play it back, and I can really fine tune it. And and I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that it's like you don't have to worry about what you look like when you go in there. I like that part.
You can go in your underwear.
You can.
I know. It's very true. I actually did, I was saying most of the voice auditions happen at home, but I did do, I was in person for a voice audition like last week or something, and I had a meeting afterwards. I looked good. I washed my hair. I put on makeup. I, looked like a very presentable human being. And I walked into the audition room where all the other actors and actresses were sitting, and they all kind of looked at me like, "What are you doing?"
Sure they did. Where's your baseball hat?
Yeah. This is the agreement we've all entered into here. Everyone should be in sweatpants and baseball hats, which admittedly I have been in a lot lately. So
there you go.
I think I'm finding the balance.
Well, speaking of finding the balance, people can see you now in The Perfect Landing. Involves a lot of balance.
Definitely.
And it is airing on the Fammy channel.
Fammy channel.
I'm having an easy time talking this week. The Family Channel and CBBC as well. And, of course, on Lifetime as well. Let us not forget his Fatal Fixation. Helena, thank you so much for joining us.
Favorite movie?
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I hope they let you out of the studio. You don't just live there now.
No, we are quarantined for the duration. We will be here forever.
I'm in a hazmat suit forever.
Yeah.
Ooh. Cozy look, I think. Sounds cozy.
Thank you so much. It was good to talk to you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
You're listening to The Breakdown, Channel 167, Canada Talks.